we kind of do things together and hey, help out one another. I feel like what that does, that reduces some of the stress that causes on some parents. Then, obviously sometimes the stress is things that takes away from the parents help developing the kids, or doing other things that like puts those kids in harm. I mean, that's obviously what the goal is, trying to eliminate the kids being in harm and bad environments to grow up in. So having that concrete support of, that family connections with other families, I feel like that's a big one, besides obviously like helping pay and like the financial side of it, but just the emotional support. And hey, sometimes you just gotta worry about yourself and help you out. So maybe, hey, the kids are playing with neighbors and stuff, and then you can kind of take a second to relax and breathe, and now you're able to not be so stressed or handle that whatever business or financial issue or whatever it is. I feel like that definitely kind of helps. At least I know myself, with my family, it's having that village, those neighbors and stuff like that.
I think that makes a lot of sense, Blake. And I think that one thing that's important that I think is connected to what you're saying is that every family, regardless of your family dynamics, at some point needs some help or needs a break. Would you agree with that?
Yes, most definitely. It's one of those kind of stress relief things where it's like you have your kids, you're working with them, you're doing everything with them 24/7. Sometimes, I mean, it's you don't want them to see the frustration that some of the things you go through with natural life and natural work, things that happen, especially if you care and you have that high care factor. And for me, I know one of the things I do, I wear my emotions on my sleeves, and I'm very forthcoming and telling my kids like, hey, this is this, but I try that. I do whatever I can to make sure my kids are not worrying about the financial issues, because no 11, 12 little kid needs to worry about that, because I know that's what happened to me and my family. I was always worrying about the financial issues and burdens because I'd see it on my mom's face and my family's face. So I would instantly be involved, and that just induced a lot of stress on myself. So having maybe adults to talk to, so you don't have to talk to your kids about some of those growing issues.
Absolutely. Anybody else have some thoughts to add on to what Blake is sharing with us?
Well, for us, church was a big support. Connecting with, other parents and, pastors, and just connecting through different groups in our church, groups that the kids were involved in, and then groups that we, got involved in together and separately. And then another big one is if your kids are in some type of activity, sports, dance, karate, anything, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, anything like that, if you connect with some of the other parents that are participating, their kids are participating, it can be a great support, because, whether you need help getting somebody to or from practice or a game, or just, while you're spending a whole lot of time watching them practice, that if you're connecting with some of the parents, that it really does, it can be a great place to relieve stress. And with both of my kids, I made good friends, with parents of their teammates or friends, that kind of thing.
Thank you, Glenda, for sharing that. And you brought up 2 points that I think are interesting and really important. And one is, having those church connections, or maybe through the school, sports activiits, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, and those things. But you also touched on transportation as a concrete need, which I think is important. And in our county, we do have sort of a little transportation bus system. And I'll share with you all, because you know that Sarah and I work in the same office. I think I worked there for 4 or 5 months before I realized that transportation system exists, even though it's right outside our office. So luckily I had my friend Sarah to say, hey, there's a bus system out there. And actually a group of us decided to put ourselves on it and experience what it was like to have to use that concrete support. Sarah or Ivy, what would you add to the conversation?
So right now I can tell you that I'm watching all of this unfold in front of me right now. I'm working with a lot of families that, I've talked to them in the past 2 weeks and they're like, I don't have any social support. Their family is elsewhere. They're in a different state. They're not involved at all. A lot of the families are estranged from their families and don't have anybody. I was talking to a family today and the dad is very paranoid and trying to control his kids and protect them from everything that happens. But in turn, the kids aren't allowed to leave their house. They don't have friends. They don't have anybody to reach out to. And so in turn, when I go there, I stay there and talk to them for, like today, I was there for like 3 hours and just sat and talked to them because they have nobody else. So I'm watching all of this unfold in front of my face as far as how important it is to have those friends and those family supports and go to church and have, extracurriculars that I grew up having that not everybody has the privilege to have. And, watching them struggle, like it's taking a serious toll on their mental health, not having people to reach out to. So it's been interesting to watch that unfold in front of me.
I want to applaud you, Ivy, because you are being a concrete support. So bravo to you. Sarah, I saw that you had unmuted too.
Really, I kind of echo everybody's sentiments. It's so true. I actually had to utilize a concrete support today because teacher work day for kids are out of school. Parents still have to work. So I reached out to a friend who has a child same age as my son, and we kind of tag teamed. So she needed to be at work super early this morning. So I had the kids this morning, and then we were able to kind of shift to her for me to be in the office and do the things I needed to do. And it just took such a level of weight and, stress off of me, not having to worry about how to navigate responsibilities that I needed to take care of and needed to do, but also be concerned about what kind of care situation I was going to be able to put my son in. And then they, had a great time because they were able to play and, have some social time together, which was quite a stress relief for me and the other mom. So really those concrete supports just pop up really on a daily basis. Sometimes it's hard to kind of take a step back and realize what would I do, or how would this affect me differently if I didn't have this scaffold of support. So yeah, it takes a village, like Blake said. I mean, it really, really does.
Sure does. And you have given me a good segue into our activity. I made a little animated video for us to watch that walks us through an activity of a single parent who, what her life happens to look like on a day like today. So I'm going to share my screen again. And let's take a look at what Mara's life looks like when she's trying to juggle all the things that are happening in her life. And I apologize ahead of time because Mara's mouth is moving to my narration, and that's not what I wanted it to do, but This is Mara. She's a single mother with 3 children, ranging in age from 6 months to 8 years old. We're going to walk through her day with her. Mara wakes up at 3 a.m. feeling sick. When she finally starts to feel better and lies down, closing her eyes, the baby wakes up crying and her day starts. Leaving the house, she realizes she doesn't have lunch money for the 2 older children. She writes a note to the teacher asking if they can charge lunch, saying she's out of check. Drops the 2 older children off at childcare. There's a note in her box saying that her check from last week bounced. She needs to pay for last week, this week, and the return check fee by Friday. When Mara drops the baby off at childcare, the baby throws up on himself and all over her blouse. Mara needs to go home and change. She calls her boss to let her know she might be running a few minutes late. Her boss says that she needs to come to work now. It's finally payday, and Mara's check is $270 for a 30-hour week. Her bill from the childcare program is $135. After work, when she comes out of the building for picking up the children, her car won't start. She finds someone to help, but knows she needs a new battery. When she got home from work, she looked in the mailbox. Still no child support check. 7 weeks without a check is difficult. She's made some calls and they're looking into the matter. It's time to feed the kids. She has no meat or bread in the cabinet. She opens a can of soup and makes some Kool-Aid. She only has $15 left on her EBT. Mara throws a load of clothes in the washer. Half hour later, she noticed the washer has stopped. No matter what she does, she can't get the washer to spin out. Her asthma has been bothering her all day. Without insurance, she can't afford an inhaler. She tried an over-the-counter med, but it's just not working. The kids are finally in bed when she opens the 8-year backpack. There's a note from the teacher requesting a meeting tomorrow. Mara knows she won't be able to take off of work. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm stressed out for Mara. And I also can remember, although I was not a single parent, I can remember being in situations when I was by myself for several days at a time, or even a couple of weeks at a time. And I remember feeling like some of these things were weighing down on me. So I just am curious who can relate, maybe not to the exact scenario, but kind of to those balls in the air just pretty soon kind of taking you over, and you people can't even see you anymore because you're just absolutely weighted down with these problems. So I'd love to hear your thoughts about that video or how you might be able to relate.
I know for me, right now I'm currently in a process where I'm going to be a single parent with my family. I actually got a court case for my kids to come on back. My wife took my kids up to Michigan, and so I'm going to be going through some of these questions, and like this one, like this concrete support is like really kind of supportive. Like I need to figure out like, hey, what things I can start doing in order to kind of make sure my kids are taken care of, like those basic necessities. Like things are, I'm a logistician, so I deal with making sure everything has a plan, and I look out anywhere from 3, 6, 9 months later on down the road. But this kind of got hit to me pretty fast. So there's a lot of things I'm trying to iron out. So I'm curious about what things to do on half the stuff, because like I said, I'm about to be that single father trying to raise some of my kids, and I'm going to be currently going through some of this stuff and doing a full-time job as a Marine. Pretty intense right now.
Well, Blake, one of the things that I would like to offer is to set up an appointment with myself, and I can get you connected then with one of our referral and referral specialists, and they can kind of walk through what your situation is with you and what programs that we have internally and at one place that can help, but also programming and things that we're aware of and that we can get you connected with in the community, because we want to make sure that you're successful and that your kids are happy when they get here. If you're open to that.
Yeah, that's no problem. Like I said, I'm a super busy guy. I'm one of the dudes that kind of owns the office, so but yeah, I've no problem doing that. Obviously, over Skype or something, be a little bit easier for flexible schedule, but not to take away from the instructions. But yeah, Joe, we can definitely talk offline. I have no problem with that. Just trying to see what I can do. There's just a lot of stressors, and even though all the stress is still going back to the kids, what things can you do to make sure they're not looking at that? And all these things are pretty intense. So yeah, I got my soapbox right now.
Yeah, well, and that doesn't take away from the instruction or the goal of what we're doing. That is the goal of what we're doing, is to talk about what concrete supports are available. And I know Sarah is dying to say something, I can see, so I want to turn it over to you.
Yeah, just to kind of piggyback off what Joe was saying, and it's just a perfect example of one concrete support is being flexible to meet a parent where they are. So Blake, like I understand, single father, a Marine, your hours are crazy. So like, for example, if we needed to schedule a Zoom after hours to be able to discuss some of the needs or forecasted needs you may need, we can certainly do that. But on top of some of the programs that we can help share with you, we also collaborate with a lot of the family readiness programs on base. And we have a really good relationship with being able to connect you to some things that are some supports on base that could maybe help scaffold or support some different supports that we have in the community to provide kind of a holistic care plan for you.
Yeah, that was going to be my question, because I know there's tons of amenities on base and stuff like that. I never had to tap into them. So obviously, because I've never been in a situation before, but things are happening, and I still want to make sure my number one focus is God and my kids. So I need to make sure, no matter what, that I can do that. I feel like I can search and redo those things on the civilian side very easily, but one, everything's just a little more kind of confusing right now, because sure once, like you said, like my kids are my number one thing. So I've told my boss, like, hey, just to let you know, this point on, like my kids are gonna be my number one thing, man. I'll do whatever you want, but like my kids are gonna come first, man. So
Yeah, and to help you kind of navigate that, we can be your travel agent of sorts and fill in some of those holes and take some of that stress of trying to figure out, you know, what is available and, you know, what are the parameters around this being available? And okay, well, that still leaves a gap here. So yeah, we can certainly kind of partner with you and take some of that stress off you and navigate that with you to make sure you have every possible resource and support you need.
that would definitely that'd be perfect. Just trying to see like what things I can do, and that's why going on to these series, like I'm doing this so I can be a better father and like the triple P stuff. And I know it's a big burden to try to raise kids singly compared to doing co-parent stuff, and I know how hard it can be. By my family did it and stuff like that, and I just want to try to do the best I possibly can. And yeah.
Well, you've got the best of intentions, Blake, and I really appreciate you sharing so much. And I am going to send you a link to, not a link, but an email, sorry, after we're done, to offer a couple of times when maybe we could do a Zoom link, maybe Sarah and you and I, or whoever might be appropriate, so we could kind of get started, because we want to ensure that your kids are happy and that you guys are a successful family.
Yeah. Easy day. I actually recently started to try to volunteer to be a coach as well. So there's that, and then there's all these things that I'm trying to help out do, and trying to get the kids outside, trying to get the kids, like they were saying earlier, someone was saying about having kids around those sports and stuff like that, or activities. That was my whole goal, is to be able to meet people and understand and break out of just being the house and create that village. It's just harder just doing it as a single dad. So things are just get a little complicated, but yeah.
Glenda, Ivy, I know we've talked a little bit about a situation with Blake, and you've also seen kind of the video of the situation with Mara, and I just didn't know if you guys had anything you wanted to throw in on the conversation at this point.
Oh, I think it's a good reminder for those of us who are trying to be resources for others, and that I'm a very visual learner. So, you know, watching her just sort of be swallowed by all of what was going on, and just, you know, because we all have those days or those weeks where we think, I just cannot, there can't be one more thing that gets piled on, I use my plate. And then all of a sudden, you know, you go to get in your car and you got a flat tire, or, you know, it just seems like it just adds up and it adds up. But I think it's a really good visual to just keep in mind of when we're meeting with people. You don't ever know what has already happened. You know, I thought about like her blouse, you know, the baby threw up on her blouse and then she still got to go to work. Like, you know, that can be a fine, something like that seems trivial can be a final straw. So we never know what somebody's day has already looked like when we go to meet them. So it's reminding ourselves to be compassionate, and compassionate to ourselves also, that when we get ready to walk out the door and we've already had all of that go on, to give ourselves, you know, a little bit of what we try to give others, and be understanding of ourselves as well as others. Because you just, some of those days, those balls they all fall on top of you.
And I don't know about you guys, but for me, it seems like whatever day that happens, they all come on that day. We've talked a little bit about the importance of social connections, which it is a concrete support, but also social connections is its own protective factor. So I want to share my screen and look again at our friends from Prevent Child Abuse North Carolina, their video around social connections. So let me.
in the home. Providing concrete supports helps prevent unintended neglect that can occur.
Pause this one. All right, so now we're on to social connections.
Child Abuse, North Carolina. As you might know, April is Child Abuse Prevention Month, and this year we're highlighting one protective factor each week to educate about what it takes to keep families strong and children safe. The protective factors are conditions that, when present in families and communities, actually help strengthen families and prevent child abuse and neglect from ever occurring. This week, we're highlighting social connections as our protective factor of the week. Caring relationships and strong social connections really strengthen families from the start and give parents with a history of trauma an opportunity to heal. As more caring relationships are formed, communities become better connected. Connected communities have lower levels of crime and interpersonal violence. Citizens have better physical and mental health, and less money is spent on treating social problems. Parents and caregivers with a social network of emotionally supportive friends, family, and neighbors often find that it's easier to care for their children and themselves. Research tells us that parents who are isolated with few social connections are at a higher risk for child abuse and neglect. That's why now, more than ever, it's important that we stay socially connected and emotionally connected to the families in our communities and in our lives. Parents need people they can call on to offer a listening ear, to offer helpful advice, to connect them to concrete supports, or simply just to share a laugh with and build a little resilience. So make sure that you are checking in on the parents and caregivers in your life. Call them for a weekly check-in. Schedule a recurring virtual coffee with the parents in your life, or stop by their house to say hello at a distance.
So we talked already a little bit about the importance of social connections, and I wanted to share that video with you because it does talk about what the definition of healthy social connections are according to the National Alliance for the Children's Trust and Prevention Funds. And one of the things that research shows is that when people are isolated, there's a higher chance for children to be abused or neglected. And so sometimes just being that person that smiles and waves can be enough to provide somebody with some resilience that they need to get through the day. And so kind of expanding on the conversation we've already had, what kind of things could make a good social support? And some examples might be, as we've talked about, having a friend or neighbor where you can send your child for a few minutes while you cool down or solve a problem, or for half a day, like Sarah shared, where she needed to flip-flop care with a parent so that she and that other parent could both get to work. That is a concrete support, but it's a result of a social connection that Sarah has. And the idea of just having somebody to laugh with, to relax with, or just say, you're not going to believe what my son did today. So I'd love to hear all of your thoughts about social connections and what you see as some strong social connections, in addition to church and school, the people we work with, and our families.
I think kind of from a different spin, specifically around how everyone has had to kind of flex and regroup around the pandemic and kind of the social isolation that has resulted from that. Even social connections within your own home. So, within your family dynamic in your house, sometimes that can be a lot of like a better term, forced family fun together. So even understanding how the social connections within your immediate family may need to shift to allow for some self-care, or, for a little space away, going out on the front porch for 10 minutes and just having some quiet time. And then also how you can still bring in those external social connections through, Zoom formats, or, taking time to actually have a phone call versus a text. It just really, it can really do. I think this pandemic has shown us the necessity of it when it was kind of removed from our daily lives.
And just the idea of pulling in somebody's driveway and just socially distancing, but have a conversation for 15 minutes has
Exactly. Just, waving from the driveway or whatnot. Some of just even those brief interactions can change a day and offer a little grace to somebody.
And you certainly brought up a strong point, Sarah, that this pandemic has changed the way we live, and has changed the way we're going to be living, I think, for a while. So anybody else has some thoughts about social connections that you want to share with the group?
I mean, I feel like one of the things, I mean, it goes back to those pillars of fitness, physical fitness, spiritual fitness, social fitness, that feeling of being part of a herd or part of a group. I mean, by nature, how humans we're herd animals, as in like we like to be around other people. So not having that, like this, just like you're saying, this pandemic that we're going through right now, obviously, hopefully we're on the tail end of all this, these masks and these stuff of, get out and doing more things. But one of the things that we're looking at is understanding that not having that human connection is really hard on a lot of us. The introverts and extroverts, some people are taking it different ways. This is, like, for me, I like to get out. I like to talk. I like to go be outside, do other things. So this thing keeping me in, I'm itching to break out and go do stuff. Having that ability to do that with individuals, share those times, because it's not about all the time that you have with someone. It's the value time. And what I mean by that, like, one of the things, obviously, being Marine when I deploy and all that stuff, it's not the time that I'm gone. It's the time that I have with my kids, with my family, that I try to make to be the very best, because those are the things that you're going to remember. You're not going to remember me gone for so long. You're going to remember me, all the great things that we did. So having that value time with others as well is definitely needed in today's society. Doing everything virtually, it's a good, but there's having like the keyboard warriors and all these individuals that are behind the screen. It's one of those things that it's good, but there's other things that we could do to do better. Having that human interaction, regardless. Like, they did a study about all these people who did blogs and stuff like that. When they got together, they actually came together in person, even though their whole job was doing nothing but blogs and all these different things. It was showing that there still should be a connection. Making a handshake with someone can definitely prove vital to that spirit, or that social fitness that we look towards, or things to help out, at least. That's how I feel about it.
Well, a lot of bonding and attachment is based on physical proximity and touch, and so I think that's important to think about, Blake. And you brought up another important point, that we're hoping that we're talking about healthy social connections, and sometimes when we are getting information or interacting with people online, it's easier sometimes for people to be less kind online, and so we want to make sure that when we're interacting with people, that's something that's healthy for them and for us.
Mm-hmm.
Sarah?
Yeah, something Blake said kind of made me think, about, as human beings, we're intuitively social beings. We're pack animals. We need those connections. And during the pandemic, as some of these concrete supports and these social connections were removed, and these additional external stressors were added on family, I mean, we've seen evidence of it in our own community, as the cases of children who are being served in our Child Advocacy Center since early March of 2020, when the pandemic started, just to January 1st, the cases of child abuse, physical and sexual abuse, went up by 40%. And those are substantiated. That's not even reciprocal of the cases that were not reported, because those supports and social connections were not in place for families. So we're in such a it just proves evidence to how those scaffolds are just so beneficial and crucial for all families, not just, it's not based on race, demographic, your pay scale. I mean, it's everybody is victim to this.
Absolutely. And it's staggering to think about how much those cases have increased when people are home more, and home is supposed to be your safe place. So Glenda or Ivy, anything that you'd like to add before we do our next activity? All right, I'm going to put some questions in the chat box here. And we're going to, it's not a video, it's an audio recording. And it is a mother, her name is Brooke, and she is going to share a little bit about her story and how making a social connection impacted her life. So just be thinking about the questions that I put in the chat here. What strengths do you hear Brooke talking about? What are Brooke's concerns about making friends? Why does she ultimately move past those concerns? And how does that lessen her stress? So be thinking about those as we hear Brooke's story here. And we'll go back to our PowerPoint to get to Brooke's story.
Yeah. I'm a mom of three kiddos, 5, 3, and 1. And I also watch 2 other kiddos at my house that are 4.
Sorry.
4, and another one that's the same age as my 1-year-old. They're almost 20 months now. And I adore nap time. And at nap time, my daughter had grown out of naps, and she decided that her and I should be playing games together and doing different things. And through that process, I realized I needed that time for myself, and looked into different preschool programs that would give her the social connections that I wanted for her. So I signed her up for a preschool class from 12:45 until 3:30, which I thought was perfect. That would allow me time by myself and also allow my kids to sleep. What I found was the transportation Monday through Thursday was very difficult for me and for my kids. And every single day I watched this black truck go by my road right at the exact same time that I was loading up 5 children before nap to take them to preschool. And I realized that this was my neighbor who lived down the street from me, who had 3 children herself, who has walked by my house many, many times. And I hadn't wanted to make the connection with her because I wasn't sure if I did make that connection, would her kids come over? Would they be nice? Would they come over uninvited? Would they come over every day? Would this become a problem in my home? And so I just sort of waved every single time she went by. But over and over every day, as I was loading 5 kids up in the car to take her to preschool at 12:45, and often having to wake up an infant or toddler to go and pick her up at 3:30, I felt I was out of my integrity and somewhat losing my mind with the responsibility of loading 5 children twice a day. So finally, she drove by, and I was outside with the children, and I waved at her, and she stopped, and she pulled in the driveway. And through that conversation, I said, "Oh, I see you drive by every single day." And she's like, "Yeah, I'm dropping off my kids at New Horizons Preschool." And I thought, oh, instantly I just wanted to hold her and cry. And we ended up working out a deal that I watch her kiddo, because she doesn't get a break either, 1 day a week, and she drives my daughter back and forth to preschool. The children get to nap. I get the 2-hour rest and break that I'm looking for. And the relationship has continued to the point where her and I are both going to be sharing some of the transportation for kindergarten next year. I decided to put my son in the same preschool class as her son. And not only that, but we've decided that her and I would go out and let our husbands watch and build this relationship even deeper. So I just really appreciated trusting and dropping some of that fear. And it just turned out to be a win-win situation.
All right, so just curious if you guys in listening, share her situation, if you heard some strengths that her family has, because remember, we want to always have a strengths-based lens, and all families do have strengths. So thinking about what strengths you might have heard and what were her concerns about friendship.
I feel one of the strengths that she has, that she was still able to getting the kids to and from the school, like the necessity of getting their kids to the same daycare and different things like that. I feel like that's one of the strengths. She's still able to do that. And now with her friends, she's able to do that and work out a deal. So it's even better for her, the little ones, so they can have that time period. Obviously helps your own psyche when you don't have to do all this every single time. You get that little bit of break because you made that connection.
Absolutely. Glenda, I saw you were unmuting. Did you want to share?
Well, and I think, well, she has several good things. So she's, she does have her own transportation. So that's a big strength. And she is working, she's doing childcare in her home, which means she has childcare for her own children. So, she's got that strength. She has, her spouse who she can leave, she feels like she can go off and leave the children, with her spouse, and she's comfortable, with that. But I think that the fear piece affects a lot of us when it comes time to try to make new friends, because she's already feeling overwhelmed, and then she starts playing this tape in her head of what this all could look like, and that it could go really wrong, and that she could end up in a situation that is more stressful for her than helpful for her. So I think that she has lots and lots of stress, lots and lots of good things, but we still a lot of times are afraid to kind of step out because the fear of the unknown is worse than what the situation probably will be. And so I think that her going ahead and sharing with this lady and trying to, reach out a little bit, being that one to initially do the wave when she's trying to do ends up being a huge strength for her, because she's able to get so much more out of that relationship now.
I agree with those things, Glenda. And I wonder, whenever I have listened to Brooke share her story, one of the things that I think about was, did she have some kind of fear of being judged? Because we all do, we all harbor that, right? Like a fear of being judged. And was she concerned that this new friend would judge her as a parent, judge her children? Because I know when my son was little, he had some extenuating special needs, but he had some very specific behaviors that could be concerning to other people who were just popping over for a visit. And, so we limited that because, to some degree, because I didn't want people to judge my kid. Just kind of being honest about it. And I wonder if some of that plays into that as well. Just curious if Glenda, Ivy, Sarah, Blake, if you picked up any of that.
Oh, I think that there's definitely some of that. I think that comes along with, being a parent, and, if somebody new comes into your house and she's got all those young children between hers and the one she is providing care for, like, her house is probably not going to be perfectly picked up as, and we worry about that. Like, are they going to judge us on, the fact that, there's toys everywhere, or there are some dirty dishes around, and, and then, and in these days of social media, that's where so much of that judging of ourselves, I think, comes in, because you have this friend who, you went to high school with, and she's got it all together in her pictures. And that's what we see. But you walk in her house and it's probably a very, very different story. And so I think that adds to this level of us being concerned about that, is because we feel like other people seem to have it all together, and why don't I? And then, but when you open up and you have those friends that you really connect with, you realize they do not have it together either. And, you know, you might have it better together in one area and they might in another, and you combine those two resources. I mean, I've had friends where like we've even cleaned each other's house because, you know, we both felt overwhelmed and it was just more fun to do it together. So we met and we did one house one day and one house the other day. And there was no judging on whose was dirtier, who had more dog hair. And it was a way to cope with our stress, make it more fun, and get that social connection.
That's awesome. I love that example. Sarah, Ivy, did you want to add anything? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Blake.
Sorry. One of the things I feel like that, with the whole judging stuff, like some people go and look to judge and right away, like, oh, this situation. I don't know why this society has looked at trying to do that. I know it's taking more of a negative look at things, but like just how you said that, hey, the Facebook thing, like everyone shares, you know, the perfect side of them. No one shares like, hey, the dark valley that you're going through every day, or you know, some of these battles. Like obviously, like I'm going through this. The people who know is people in my church, and like some few people at work kind of understand exactly what I'm going through. And some people would judge you, but we want at the end of the day, like no one. Just the way how I look at it, no one has the right to judge. There's only one person that has the right to judge. You're trying your best, just like how looking at things through a positive lens and not just a negative lens. Like that's why one of the things I do like, because it makes people understand, like, hey, you're trying to do the best you can. Like for me, I'm working still crazy hours because I know once I get my kids, I'm not gonna be able to work the same hours. So I'm trying to pay it forward, try to do things now, knock it out so I can have those times. And I'm still doing that the best portion that I can. I feel like that's some of the things that we take for granted, is that we need to be able to put people in each other's shoes. Like, hey, I don't know if I was the same person. I have 5 kids doing the same thing what she was doing. Like, man, how hard would that be? Just like you're saying, like how the house potentially looks like, and all this stuff. There's so much that it could be part of. So I feel like before we judge, we need to look at, hey, who we are, and try to put yourself in that person's shoes. Look at that aspect of it at least. But again, Joe, I gotta get going, man. I just want to let you know, I appreciate you guys. You can send me that email. I'll reply to it tomorrow and stuff like that. And yeah, we'll talk to you guys later, though. I appreciate it.
All right. We appreciate you being here, Blake, and we'll send out the resources and follow-up email like we do every week, okay?
All right. Easy day.
Take care.
Bye.
I think Blake's last comment too really touched on the idea of having that strengths-based lens and how important that is, that, instead of judging people, why don't we focus a little bit on what the strengths are in every family? So, well, the last couple of minutes that we have together, I have typically shared our resources, and you guys either work at one place in one case or have seen these resources. So I'm just going to touch on them briefly, but you know that we have Triple P Online, and that is available 24/7 at no cost to families. And you can get connected with Triple P Online either at this website or through One Place's website under our parents and early educator resources. I just like to make sure if you're sharing this out with anybody, that you make sure that they realize they have to select an age group. This pink arrow does not show on the screen. I added that. So I've had some people say, well, I went there and I didn't see the pink arrow. So the age groups are actually at the bottom. And of course, our CCR and our training calendar, you can go to oneplaceonslow.org, select for parents and early educators, and then select training information and registration. And we have certainly training information that is beneficial to early educators and those in the field, but it's also beneficial to parents and other community members. So next week is our last Back Porch Chat. I can't believe it. This has been really, really great. And I have appreciated all of you guys being a regular part of it. Next week, we're going to look at social emotional competence of children. And that will be our protective factor that focuses on the children in the home as opposed to the adults in the home. So before we wrap up, just curious if anybody has anything they'd like to add or questions you'd like to talk about, or if Glenda wants to tell us the name of her puppy dog that I saw.
That, I tell you, that's actually one of the best social supports is your pet in your home. This is Jenny.
Hi, Jenny.
Girl.
You come say hello, Jenny? Come here. She's had her dinner. She's tired now.
She's dead. You're right. Animals can be such a strong social support.
Mm-hmm. It's great when kids, who have lots and lots of stressors, if they have, even if it's not their own pet, like a neighbor who has a dog who they, connect to, or a cat, but, animals really are a huge, huge help for kids when they're under stress.
Absolutely. I'm going to email you. You triggered me when you were talking, Glenda, too. I'm going to email that video of Mara. I'm going to email it out to you guys. And I do think it's a good visual reminder for people to do the kind of work that we all do. Like you said, like we just don't know what's happening with people. So Ivy, I don't know if that's something that might be helpful to you.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And I think, you can even, something like that, you can actually use with your clients.
Yep.
For sure.
To show them that, it's just a good visual of, what their day can look like, and that we all have, have those days. But yeah, I think that's a great one.
And I have a lot of clients right now that everything that was in your video, that's what they're dealing with right now. I have a lot of single parents that are a part of domestic violence issues. So they're being forced to raise their kids on their own.
Yeah.
And you've got a bunch of single moms or even single dads that are trying to figure it out on their own. And with no social supports, it makes it super, super difficult for them to figure it out on their own.
Well, that video is already branded with One Place's information, so you are welcome to use it in any way that you would like to. So I'm going to stop recording, and thank you all again for being here this evening.
Thank you.